Hi, I'm your host Vasco Duarte. Welcome to the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast, where we share tips and tricks from Scrum Masters around the world. Every day, we bring you inspiring answers to important questions that all Scrum Masters face day after day. On Fridays, we talk about the product owner role in Scrum. We talk about patterns and anti-patterns that relate to ours and the team's collaboration with the product owner. And we've also put together a course to help you navigate that relationship. There's 18 modules, nearly 8 hours of tools, techniques, videos, handouts, presentations you can use to help you and your team work better with your product owner. The course is available at bit.ly/coachyourPO. All lowercase, all one word. That's bit.ly/coachyourPO. And now, on to the show, the Product Owner Show. Hello everybody, TGIF as they say, and we are here for our Friday episode this week with Thomas van Zoulen. Hey Thomas, welcome back.
Hey Vasco, super happy to be here.
So it's Friday, I imagine in the Netherlands you're somewhere in a terrace opening up a beer.
Exactly.
I guess that's what they drink over there.
Yeah, we have to do it, right? It's one of our big exports, so I have to support the country.
And I imagine that in that terrace you have a fellow Scrum Master that you're talking to about product owners. You have some good stories to share, but also some fun and sometimes insightful bad stories to share. And that's what we're going through. So we're all in the terrace having a Dutch beer with Thomas. Thomas, describe for us what has been potentially the worst product owner anti-pattern you've witnessed in your career.
Oh, well, people, as we sit here drinking, I want to highlight the anti-pattern of getting involved with the how. And I've seen this pattern happen specifically with product owners that had a different role previously, or that haven't been a product owner for very long. I've worked with a couple of them over the last couple of years that had just transitioned into the role of PO, and they were like very forward thinking, and there was a reason that they became POs and no longer wanted to be an architect or a dev or a tester or something like that. But it was kind of hard to let go for them of the sort of conversations that they would have as testers or devs or architects. Now, this manifests in product owners being like mega busy. So they're already juggling a lot of activities and responsibilities. But these product owners that talk too much about how we might solve a problem, they don't have enough time for the things that they need to be doing, and that in turn sort of hurts the progress of the team, and that then hurts their sort of work. So it's kind of a self-perpetuating cycle. So what I do with those product owners is I talk to them one-on-one, and like when they indicate they're feeling overwhelmed, I try to get them to list what it is that they've got going on and where the time crunch starts to exist. And without fail, or at least in these three product owners that I'm basing this story on, what was going on was looking ahead. Because that's, of course, not something that you particularly have to pay attention to while you're testing or something. I mean, to the sprint or maybe the next sprint, but that's it. But product owners need to like have a clear indication of, okay, where do we need to go roughly? So the why and the what needs to be covered by them. And once they themselves identify that it was a problem, right, that they couldn't look ahead, I use my favorite analogy of I'll keep it short, but imagine that there's a burning building. It is terrible. Everything is going to end up well, but that's because there's a fire brigade downstairs, and they're all holding like a safety net or a blanket, right? And they have to stretch that blanket out to catch people and things jumping from that building. Again, everything is going to end up just fine, but that's because everyone pulls in their own direction. So every one of those fire people is pulling in their own direction, and it only works if they pull hard to the right extent, and if they look at the other fire people. And that's how I then bring into the conversation the accountabilities that we have, right? The three accountabilities within Scrum, and they need to fulfill theirs. Otherwise, there's too much slack on the line. So then we try to talk about, okay, how could you pull in the right direction a little bit more, and let the other people pull into their direction a little. So that allows the starting out product owners, POs that are starting out, to feel that they're allowed to not have that sort of conversation about specific problem solving anymore and really look ahead. So that's okay, and then they can really make some space to have different involvement.
Yeah, and those conversations, so looking ahead could be, I guess, detailed in many specific ways, like talking about the vision, looking at potential customer segments, helping the stakeholders decide what kind of strategies they have to go to a particular market or grow their customer base or whatever those business goals are, right? And that ability to focus the PO in that kind of or in those kinds of conversations is actually an amplifier for team success, because if the PO is too focused on the day-to-day, like the testing or the developing or the architecture conversations, obviously they don't have time to look ahead. Not only that, but they're taking space away from the team to do their job and take ownership and become a more productive team.
Yeah, exactly. Pasco, that's like almost to a T, the kind of talk that I have with these product owners. Yeah, exactly. You want your colleagues to self-organize towards achieving something, right? And if you step too much forward, it's like being a Scrum Master. That's why I think that helps product owners and Scrum Masters relate, because they both have a similar relationship from a different perspective to the developers on the team, right? So they're there, but not pulling in the same direction.
Absolutely. And this also makes me consider like this question of what are the conversations we want to see the product owners have with the team, right? So not perhaps not too much into the problem solving, not too much into what we test, how we test, or what we develop, how we develop, but what conversations we want to see the product owner have with the team, but also what conversations we want to see the product owner have with other people, like stakeholders, support people, customers, whatever that might be. So stakeholders in the end. And I think it's very important for us to have a good idea of what are those conversations, so we can help the product owner create those conversations in the case where they might not even exist or might not have been started yet.
Yeah, and it often revolves around the touch point of your responsibilities. Right, so you're having that conversation. The other person needs something else out of it, and you also need something. I mean, for your own accountability, you need something from it. But those overlap, and that's why you're having a conversation. But it doesn't mean that you need to go into too much detail as a product owner, for instance. But you need to be able to ask, okay, so what does this mean to me, or to the product, or something? And from that
and
follows
learn
what
to
choices.
ask those questions so that we don't get too far into the details, right?
Yes.
Because sometimes we ask those questions in a way that sucks us into the problem solving.
Look, and the problem is that's usually fun to do, right? So especially if you're a subject matter expert, so that's an easy trap to fall into. But you need to be mindful of the pattern before you can change your behavior in such circumstances, I think.
So, Thomas, that was a bad example, but of course we want to end up on a high here on the podcast, and because it is Friday, right? So let's focus on the opposite, the mirror image of this, what might have been potentially the best product owner you've ever worked with. Describe them for us.
Ooh, the best product owner. Yeah, it has to be Joost. Joost, I worked with a couple of years ago on an application that was about digital learning, so for school books, that sort of thing. And I was always impressed with the way that he balanced involvement with the Scrum team. So this is this is a boring example, right? Because he did what you want a product owner to do, right? To be there when it counts, engage in conversations, ask the right questions, but also do a lot of stakeholder herding. And this was all, let's say, it all came together in one meeting. It was a refinement, a product backlog refinement, where not the whole team was present, also great, just people from different perspectives, so that everything could move forward. And during this meeting, Joost farted. And he was, I mean, I'm sort of immature now, and back then, this is already years ago, I was even more immature. So this was like a deal breaker to me. This is where the meeting ends. We never recover from this. It's also in a small meeting room and that sort of stuff. We were never going to get to the end of that. But Joost, yes, sorry for naming you repeatedly, Joost, but it's all a compliment, because he was able to say, okay, so let's move on. He really literally said that. And then we actually did that. So not only did he do all the right things in balance, like on the grander scale of his product ownership, but he was also able to distill that into dealing with unexpected circumstances in meetings and sessions. And I have to really say that that's cool, because he exhibited so many good traits and behaviors, and showed some humanity in the process, that it was not hard to rally around him, even if there was sort of a pungent intermission into our work.
I like how you describe that, definitely. But I think it's a great point. The behaviors that we have, even in the most awkward situations, reflect perhaps the core values and the core perspectives we hold in practice, right? Now, you don't have a theoretical conversation about that particular event. You have it right there, and it's very practical, right?
Yes.
You could be embarrassed and not be able to continue, and just need them spend some time alone. I definitely can relate to that. Or you might just say, "Hey, sorry guys, that was uncalled for. Let's move on."
Yes, yeah, I'm very happy for your mature dealing with this, because I think
I don't know if I would be so mature if I were in your shoes, but
in the heat of the moment, literally, it was very different. But it's super great, and I think you highlight here what matters. So it's how you deal with situations or unexpected situations that reflects how you deal with things that you plan for as well. And I think that really connected very well in that case. And it was commendable how to move on from that. And
yeah,
that was
absolutely. And it's a great example of how we can pay attention to even the things that are not really related to work, but they give us good hints as to how people react in other work-related aspects, right? And we were talking about how on Tuesday about how being part of conversations and learning how to set them up and so on is so important for us. But also observing conversations is so important for us. And conversations happen in dialogue, right? The words we exchange with each other, but they also happen in these reactions, right? Like the way people react in certain situations are part of that larger conversation that is shaping the relationship between stakeholders, or in this case, product owner and the team. So I think it's very important for us, using this particular example, to recognize that even the smallest of things and how we react to those is a very good indication of what we will be doing later on when the stakes are higher.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was really it's a good touch point or a milestone for the conversations to circle back to later on. I mean, not. And
it's also something you would talk about on a Friday beer in the terrace.
I thought it was very appropriate to the way you asked the question. I had a whole different thing in my mind, but then I thought, no, okay, let's go there.
That was great. So, Thomas, thank you very much for sharing all of these great stories with us, and of course also the insights and the learnings you collected over the years. We're close to the end, but before we go, where can we find out more about you and the work that you're doing?
I'm on LinkedIn, and my name is Thomas van Zuilen. This is really difficult to spell if you're not incidentally from the Netherlands, but that's also my profile name, so you can look for it there. And then I have a weekly newsletter about the things I learned as a Scrum Master and Facilitator, and that's at thebacklog, all one word, .cc.
And we'll put the link to both of those on the show notes so that people can easily find them. Thomas, it's been a pleasure. So thank you very much for sharing all of that knowledge and experience with us.
All right. It was wonderful to do. Thank you for the invite.
One more week of the Scrum Master Toolbox podcast is over, but there's a lot more we have to share. We have developed our own membership site where you find a community of active and engaged Scrum Masters. In this site, you get access to exclusive content and get to interact with us, your podcast hosts, as well as the best Scrum Masters in the world. Join us at scrummastertoolbox.com/podcast and keep this podcast free of advertising. See you next week for one more week full of Scrum Master tips and tricks. We really hope you liked our show. And if you did, why not rate this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes? Share this podcast and let other Scrum Masters know about this valuable resource for their work. Remember that sharing is caring.